What is crack-a-lackin' fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with a very quick intro this time. I went on the NBA podcast with my good friend and colleague, Bryan Toporek, who also covers the NBA for Forbes and at Bleacher Report. We talked a lot of things. We did Sixers, Clippers, and Bucks postmortems, and those were long. We did I think 30 minutes or close on average on each of those teams. And then we got into the Thunder Mavericks series, Knicks Pacers series. If you're listening on audio, I did throw up the previews already. If you're on YouTube, I've attached them in full here. I'm probably going to post the full. We had over 2 hours of talk, so you'll have that full discussion. But the previews will come at the end. So if you already listened to them, you can skip that. It was a great discussion. I love Bryan. Always has some really great insight, especially when it comes to the offseason stuff. I think you guys will really enjoy the postmortems. So nothing here on the epic Nuggets Timberwolves game that we just saw, or the Cavs Magic game 7 that we had seen on Sunday. Grant and I will probably hit that later in the week. Just wanted to kind of update you on what the timeline is, but I really enjoyed this episode. I think you will enjoy it as well. Show us some love though. Like, comment, subscribe if you have not already. Tell people about us. Like I said, there's weird temporary holds on mine and the HardwoodKnocks Twitter account for spam activity. I guess our takes for spam, really. So if you can, share it, retweet it, tell people about us, comment. The algorithm seems to like comments. So say whatever you want. We would really appreciate it. We appreciate your support as always, though. There's to join our Discord. The link to that's in the podcast and YouTube description as well. You can follow us on all the socials there too. But without further delay, let's get to some extensive offseason / playoffs talk with Bryan Toporek of Bleacher Report and the NBA podcast, which you should subscribe to. I've included the links to that in the podcast and YouTube descriptions.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 690 of the NBA podcast. I'm Bryan Toporek, and we have another great show for you today. The first round is just about over. By the time you're listening to this, it probably will be. We still have Cavs Magic Game 7 on tap, but 3 more teams have unfortunately left us for the season, that being the Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, and Los Angeles Clippers. So we will be saying bye, Felicia, to all 3 of those and tackling their biggest off-season questions. And then we will go into a Knicks Pacers preview as well. Before we do, a reminder that you can follow us on Twitter at the NBA Pod. You can find our Twitter handles in our bios to give us a follow as well. You can also find us on iTunes and wherever else podcasts are found. On iTunes, please subscribe, download, leave some 5-star reviews. Joining me today is not my usual co-host, Morten Jensen. He is away for the weekend, but he will be back shortly. Instead, we have tapped a longtime friend of the show, Dan Favale of the HardwoodKnocks podcast. He is also a writer at Bleacher Report, and I'm begrudgingly doing this because Dan is a Knicks fan, and I am hoping that he will be kind and not clown Joel Embiid, but we will see. Dan, how's it going, my man?
I am spectacular. Thank you so much for having me back. It's always fun to catch up with you, and we get to see each other in real life. Like by the time this drops, basically, for anyone who cares and is listening, when we're in NYC together. I will be kind to Joel Embiid, just because I understand that there's always an excuse, but he's dealing with Bell's palsy. He was playing on one leg, and he was still. There were moments he was cooked by the end of these games, but he was still both. For stretches that you were shot deterrent and eraser, and then just had that 50-point game. So I still have all the respect in the world for him. And I know some people call him a grifter. They think that he's soft, but those people are fucking idiots. So I'm very, I mean, are they the team we're going to start with?
Yeah, let's do it. We can.
Is there I'm on your podcast posing you a question, but is there we're officially at the point where there's mega urgency and questions with Joel Embiid, right? He's 30. There's always going to be something with it's like with Zion. You just have to assume there's always going to be something. And so does that obviously there was already this urgency leading into the offseason because they have this cap space, they have picks, they're going to, sign Maxey. But is the urgency just increased because now you've kind of you have to know more than ever that this dude is never going to be close to 100% by the end of the year?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, we say this every year going into the Sixers offseason, that this is the most important Sixers offseason yet. But this time it really is. Because it feels like this is their last shot to get it right around Embiid. The process is dead and buried. We've gone through 6 front offices since Sam Hinkie at this point. people continue to relitigate it, but it's like, okay, well, everything he drafted or traded for or accumulated is now gone, other than Joel Embiid, basically. So they are relying on Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and now this ability to create $65 million in cap space. But even if they did, I haven't seen anyone throw this out yet, but like the idea of just doing another like quote unquote gap year, just signing a bunch of guys to 1 year deals and then like running it back next summer in case their options are any better. Even if you do that, like they've manufactured an additional 20 plus million in cap space this summer just by holding off on the Maxi extension. They're gonna
Right.
they're gonna wait to sign him. His cap hold is 13 million. He's gonna get presumably a full max. So we'll see if he makes all NBA, because that will uh, affect how much his starting salary will be. But he's going to make at least $35 million next year. So even if they were to say, okay, we're going to just do this 1 year plan, we'll go in 2025. Well, now you've got two guys on full max deals. Like you won't have the ability to create $65 million in cap space next summer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think they absolutely have to get it right this year, and we'll see. I mean, there's already some speculation about which, their interest in Paul George has been the worst kept secret in the NBA. Brian Windhorst of ESPN went on Get Up on Friday, like naturally 12 hours after the Sixers season ends. It's already slop season for them. Mentioned Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler as possible targets as well. LeBron James can become a free
Please,
agent. They'll
please
sit
keep
around
Jimmy
there.
Butler the hell away from this team. This is just not like, let's not tie our immediate fate to someone who is I mean, he's kind of fragile. He's always dealing with something. He's definitely a gamer, but he's getting up there in age, and he did not look right this season. Then goes on to miss the entire play. Like it'd be a fun storyline, but if you just circle back to what age 34, what is he 34, 35? Jimmy Butler, that's a little bit uninspiring to me.
Yeah. I guess let's start with this. Of those names that have been floated out as potential Sixers targets, if they go the 3-star route, and we can debate that separately, but you know, by all accounts, they are going star hunting. Who do you think makes the most sense, either out of that group, or is there another target that you think they should be eyeing?
Well, so what's interesting? So let's start with that group because I still think it's Paul George. I know he's older too. He just turned 34, I think, on May 2nd. He is more plug and play than everyone you just named. And I know he played most of that Mavericks series with like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving energy. It was
Yeah.
just, it was an abomination. However, his role changes in Philly, or at least he's able to settle into a more consistent one where it's, well, will Kawhi be available? Will he not be available? And then I know and we'll do another podcast at some point about the 3-star max model. It feels when you know that one, because you have cap space, like I think it's a little bit easier to sign on to that because it's not costing you a crap ton of assets other than that
Mm-hmm.
cap equity. Now, but also the benefit here is though, because he's extension eligible, even if he opts in, he controls his own fate in a way that James Harden never did because there's a market for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're the Sixers and you have to give up like something for Paul George, so let's say it's an opt-in and trade rather than an outright signing, like it's still not going to cost you as much as it would to get a Jimmy Butler, maybe even to get a Brandon Ingram. And that matters because the Sixers only have picks and cap space to offer. Like there's no like you're not looking at a blue chip youngster to send out. And that also means if you're getting into, and maybe that's why I've latched on to the Paul George fit, is it feels like he's just going to get to pick where he goes. Not that if Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Butler and the Heat decide to part ways, yeah, he'll have a say, especially looking at his contract, his age. But because he gets to pick where he goes, it also feels like the route that will come at the lowest opportunity cost of getting a 3rd star. And so I don't know how you feel about that. But then the second layer of that would be if you're actually looking to trade for a star that's already under contract, they can move up to 5 first-round picks this summer.
Mm-hmm.
But like, is that going to be like, what is the name that you're putting all of those on the table for? I doubt they exist. Like maybe Devin Booker, but like, you're never even going to have the best offer because all you have is these picks. You would need a
Mm-hmm.
team that I guess is desperate to just save money, or you need someone to say, hey, it needs to be Philly.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on this, because especially now that they're getting more mentioned in like the trade rumor mill instead of just free agency. I'm with you in thinking, what do they have to offer other than picks and cap relief? Like, even if you want to say they could sign and trade free agents to whichever team they're trading with, teams over the apron can't receive contracts via sign and trade. So that closes, like, Miami could not receive, as much as I would love to sign and trade Tobias Harris to Miami. Miami could not receive Tobias Harris in a sign and trade. Um, I don't know where the Pelicans are relative to the apron, or where they're projected to be relative to the apron, but like, are you sign and trading Kelly Oubre Jr. to the Pelicans for Brandon Ingram? Probably not. Like, I think a lot of these teams are going to want a picks plus prospects package, or
especially a team like the Pelicans that has, I mean, most of these teams of the players you just listed, they're not even entering these rebuilds by moving these players. Maybe the Heat would want picks more than most people. Like the Pelicans need dudes if they're getting rid of Brandon Ingram.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like all these guys feel like they would make more sense in a star for star swap. So, maybe an Ingram for Towns or an Ingram for Trae Young or something like that. And then, figure out the picks and the supporting pieces, whatever. But yeah, I can't see how the Sixers, if it's just a 2-team deal, how they would make that work. Now, Daryl Morey is very creative. Maybe he gets involved
6 teams.
like a 18-team deal, and they're just, the Sixers are using their cap space and just taking on contracts. But I mean, it is worth stressing that is a possible use of their cap space, because I cannot tell you how many people, every time I mention that they can create 65 million, get like a picture of the spot track top free agents. Like, I know there are not a ton of top free agents. If they don't get Paul George or LeBron James, they might not get a star, like third star in free agency, but you can always trade for guys. And as long as they're under the cap after the trade, they don't have to send salary back. I'm thinking more along the lines of what happened last year with John Collins, where Utah got him for Rudy Gay and a second round pick. Like, these teams, we have been hearing from all of these insiders that teams are more cost conscious and, might have to shed some salary. So I don't know which teams that will be. This is not going to be a popular name to throw out there, but Andrew Wiggins, I imagine, would be one such example. I would not want to take him on unless the Warriors are including additional assets. Like, I would not be giving up assets to get Andrew Wiggins, but
right.
Like, those are the types of guys that I think are more realistic trade targets for the Sixers than a Brandon Ingram, unless it's a multi-team deal where, cap relief is one of the big things that one of those teams is going after.
It almost kind of feels like it's Paul George or LeBron or bust if you're looking for a star trade for them. Just like these guys decide they want out of their current situation, and Philly's where they want to go for whatever reason. Although I did think, and I've had this thought about Miami too, but the Sixers can actually save the money. First of all, if Minnesota starts cutting costs, they're fucking sham, because you have until the end of next league calendar year to cut your tax bill in theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so this team was good enough to where they at least deserve until next year's trade deadline. I've been pretty adamant about that. But whatever's going on with the controlling ownership there with Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez versus Glenn Taylor, if they're looking to cut costs, and it's just like, let's just say it costs you a pick, but they're so dead set on cutting costs, would you be willing to try Karl Anthony Towns out on this team with Embiid and Maxey? No, I would do it.
Not at all.
I'm not gonna lie, I would do it.
I think, again, we definitely need to just do a full 3-star, 3 max, whatever episode, because I think this is, I'm seeing now, finally, more people are starting to realize this, but I've been kind of beating this drum for months that it's going to be really, really difficult to build around 3 stars moving forward. Not impossible, and I think there will be exceptions. Boston, I think it's going to be one. OKC, just because of all their picks, is going to be one. But I think if you're building around, you accumulate this 3rd star either via free agency or via trade. If you don't have that supporting cast in place already, it's going to be really tough. I think if you do the 3-star or 3 max model, it almost has to be 1 guard, 1 wing, 1 big.
I was thinking the same thing. It's 1-3-5. That's what the 3-star model has to be.
Yeah, I think it's just a bad allocation of resources to spend. Between Embiid and Towns alone, it's going to be almost $100 million.
Well, my thought process was, because Minnesota's valuing the cost-cutting part of that trade as an asset, Philly presumably wouldn't be doing that later on, so they could flip Karl Anthony Towns if they wanted to for more. Maybe it's he's still the holdover if they have to do a Joel Embiid trade. I would say in this specific situation too, the other thing that I feel like people aren't necessarily accounting for, there are players of their own free agents that they just might want back to
Yeah.
lower, like, and that'll lower, like D'Anthony Melton if he's healthy. I know he's dealing with the back stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I am a bullish on the fact that Nicholas Batum can't retire. This team just
Oh,
still needs him.
I will be so mad. I will. People are already begging his wife on Twitter to let him come back for one more year.
I would assume that Buddy Hield is gone, but like that's someone who I thought that was such a home run trade for me at the deadline, and then to see what kind of became of it. But then he has that type of game 6
Yeah.
against the Knicks, and then even Kelly Oubre Jr. They don't have his bird rights, but they have cap space. So those are just 4 guys I kind of identify. And they don't necessarily want to just get rid of Paul Reed. They might guarantee his contract anyway because it's such a low number, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll have an idea of how they need to use their cap space. So the cap space they have, whether you're looking at it from a free agent perspective or a trade perspective, or the cap space they can feasibly create, they're probably not going to optimize that because it means that we have Joel Embiid, Maxey, and that's it. And just
Yeah.
that from a starting point is incredibly iffy. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see, like, and I haven't given this enough thought, whether it's trade or free agency, are there any of these like sub-star names that make a lot of sense for this team?
Yeah. I think DeMar DeRozan's going to be the one that's thrown around the most.
Ooh, I guess, yeah, with the way Joel Embiid's been shooting, you have the spacing to kind of make that work.
Yeah, I was pretty out on it for a while, but I've increasingly opened myself to it, depending on the price point, of course. Like if you're paying max or near max money, absolutely not. But if it's like 25, 30 million a year, I'm at least I'm not saying no. It's not a hard no for me. Um, Klay Thompson, I think, would be a hard no at this point. Just I can't imagine it's gonna
If he's
be.
leaving the Dubs, I would just question, like, okay, well, what is the money that got him out of Golden
Yeah,
State then?
exactly. Like I'd rather if you're giving me the choice between Malik Monk or Klay Thompson on the same contract, I'm taking Malik Monk.
So what is I know it's your podcast, but this is like the team that you cover. That's your like
Yep.
primary beat. So I'm quizzing you here. What is you're looking at this, the roster that they have, some of the guys that maybe they could bring back? Like, what are the one first, second, like your top 3 biggest like archetypal needs? Then, if it's not even just players, like we need to do this. Obviously, you could say wings, just but like it's
Mm-hmm.
weird because we're working off the baseline of they have Maxey and Embiid. That's what we
Right.
know
They have
for
nothing.
sure. Yeah,
Right. Right. So yeah, they don't need a center. I'll say that one. Or they don't need a starting center. They do need a backup center. If anything, I think the Knicks series kind of exposed Paul Reed's limitations. Unfortunately, Paul Reed, super fun player, and everyone in Philly loves him, but did not have the size to bang with either Hardenstein or Robinson. And even, I mean, I thought in what was it, Game 4 where Robinson left early. I thought like, oh wow, finally Paul Reed, like he's good, Precious Achua, like he's finally not going to be giving up 3 inches and 50 pounds, and he still was ineffective, and they had to play Embiid, a ridiculous amount of minutes. So I think a backup center with more size is not their top need, but is a legitimate need for them. Wings, as you said, I think number one need. Really, just 3 D guys. It's just what works. They're kind of in the same place as the Lakers after the 2020 bubble championship, where it's like
mhm.
we know what archetype will work around these 2 guys. Now we
Sorry to
need
interrupt, but to be fair, it's very clear that the Lakers had no idea what
right,
archetype was going to
right. So
win.
correction, Lakers fans, a lot of Lakers fans realize
Right, right,
just do the exact opposite of what the Lakers did over the last couple of years. Do not sign Russell Westbrook. With
right.
all due respect to Russ, please no. Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right to bring up. They are not going to create $65 million of cap space, or I don't think they're going to get, because that would require they have to waive everyone. So Paul Reed's gone; his contract's not guaranteed because they lost in the first round. Ricky Council the fourth, who they signed at the end of the year to a 4-year, very lightly guaranteed deal. Jeff Doughton, who they signed, he's a team option. There's really no advantage to waiving those guys. Like they are earning slightly more than an incomplete roster charge, but like it is peanuts in the grand scheme. And I think you're just going to need guys on cheap contracts. Like I would be surprised if Ricky Council is not on the team next year. But then yeah, I think you would have to trade the number 16 pick, which is, unless you're getting someone big in return. I think you're going to want cheap cost controlled contracts. I know this draft is not super strong, but just take a swing on like an older, more established. You don't need to hit a home run. Like that's the luxury of having Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. You don't need to swing on this like high risk, high ceiling player that, super volatile. Like go for a Jaime Jaquez, a Brandon Pajemski. Like we've seen what those guys can do if you can just have them fill a role, whether it's a starter or off the bench. Like there is value in that. So they have to get rid of that pick, not take any salary back. They'd have to renounce everyone. So basically the rest of their entire roster. So I think you'll hear the 65 million figure thrown around, but I don't think they're going to actually get to that point. And I think you're absolutely right. They are going to try to bring back some of these guys. I think they should bring back Oubre. Bobby Marks of ESPN actually he did a video about the Sixers offseason and said he basically like penciled Oubre in for the room mid-level, which was lower than I expected for him, honestly. So like,
Yeah.
if that's all he gets, like that is a easy yes for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but then again, I was surprised that he was floating around for the minimum last summer too.
Yeah, and I mean, he played really well this year. Like it is wild to think about how screwed the Sixers.
He does need to learn how to travel in Philly, apparently.
Yes. And I do wonder if that. I mean, he had the reputation that he did last offseason, and I wonder if those type of off-court incidents like make other teams nervous. Maybe that drives down his price, and that works to the Sixers'
The dude
advantage.
lived in DC for how many years and didn't have any issues? Like he should be fine, right? Yeah. Like DC traffic's like absurd.
You got a metro in DC. The Philly subway is not nearly as efficient as the DC metro.
The market for this is just, there's really only one guy I'm thinking of because I think we're seeing now like Isaac Okoro's afraid to shoot in the playoffs. And so Cavs fans he had a great season, but Cavs fans can point to what he's doing from three all they want. The postseason is just different. Would they ever consider just like taking a stab at Patrick Williams and trying to maybe like either we get him or we just inflate his price and screw over for Chicago? Is that, or do they not want to tie up their cap space for the few hours that it would be tied up for to do that?
Yeah, I would imagine that's like plan D or E. Like if they strike out in the first, on all their top targets, then maybe you wait until the restricted free agent class could actually sign, and maybe you screw with other teams. Yeah, you pull a Sean Marks, like a mid-2010s Sean Marks, and just drive up the price on other teams. I like that idea though, and I think they have the liberty to get creative, which I think, based on the rumors that are coming out right now, where it's just like, oh, they're going after every star player, they're doing the exact opposite of that. I'm trying to talk myself into that being a smokescreen, and that's like also, they're allowing themselves to leverage allowing Paul George to leverage their cap space to make the Clippers have to pay up more for him, and they're like, yeah, that's cool. We don't care. You guys aren't going to win the title either way. So I'm personally, I would go 2 stars. I would not go after any of these big names that we've been hearing.
What about just because it would maybe screw over New York in the would you give the 4-year $175.4 million offer to OG?
Oh, I would consider it. Or yeah, I mean, he's up there. He's definitely up there. I don't know. The wild card is his relationship with Nick Nurse. I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumblings about Siakam and Nurse, and that never having been a realistic option. I don't know if.
I also think that'd be a terrible fit with Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I agree. But a lot of people are like, oh, wow.
Like a lot of people were higher on the Siakam Sabonis fit when the Kings were linked to him, and it was like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah, I would do, the one big one wing. At least OG's a wing, and I think you want someone who can create a little more offensively than him, but he's so good defensively. Like that defense with him and Embiid would be hellacious. And I do think
he was doing too much self-creation towards the end of that Sixers series where the Knicks needed. He was like spinning and dribbling to nowhere a lot. And like it didn't look terrible, but it's just like that's not his forte. And there was value in him just putting pressure on his set defense. But it's just, you're right. That's just not to have that in someone who just doesn't generate or shouldn't be generating too much of their own offense. But it's like I think I would just throw it at OG to see like, well, worst case scenario, like we set the market and the Knicks are going to have to pay him this now or give him a 5th year. But other names that kind of like stand out would be like, is KCP gettable from Denver? Like, do they have because they're another team that has to be concerned with the second apron. And I don't know if you feel the same way. I really like the idea of Caleb Martin here. Would be a great fit.
Yes. Yep. I think that's the thing. I think they can. I don't know that they need to like splurge on a third max wing. I think they can kind of piece it together, and seeing what Oubre did in the system. I also think one of the things working in their favor is that Nick Nurse is a really good coach. I mean, the results might not show it. They went further with Doc Rivers than they did with Nick Nurse. So maybe that's going to fly under the radar. But he got Kelly Oubre to buy in defensively in a way that he hasn't, at least in a couple of years. And, Kelly Oubre made some like dumb mistakes at times still. But I was really impressed with what I saw in Nurse. I saw a lot of improvement out of the individual players. So I could see that being attractive to other free agents, and I could also see that being okay, maybe we don't need this high-end talent because we have a coach who's going to be able to optimize these guys, and we have ball movement now, we have off-ball movement. What a foreign concept. So my idea is I think they could go swing for the KCP type, the Malik Monk in free agency, and then maybe they go try to trade for bring back Kelly Oubre and then go trade for a wing making 15-20 million. Like Keldon Johnson is one that's rattled around in my brain a lot. I know a lot of Sixers fans do not want Kyle Kuzma.
I don't hate it. I feel like he's gotten better enough defensively. It's just, do you think he's willing to slide into more off-ball stuff? And we've never seen him because Washington's been all over the place, and then we know what kind of Lakers were under Nurse. If you could put him in more off-ball motions and actions, I wouldn't. And that contract is declining. I would absolutely do it if it's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, I wouldn't give up 3 first-round picks for him, but if it's the number 16 pick this year.
Yeah, there's when looking at the sub-star trade market, I don't names are not immediately standing out for me that the Sixers I like the idea of Kuzma. That definitely intrigues me. But I'm trying to think of other names that might Bogdan Bogdanovic is kind of interesting, but it also comes back to, are you okay giving up the equivalent of 2 firsts for players on, because you just don't have anything else to offer. It's not Atlanta's not gonna be we really want to get off Bogdanovic's contract, so we view your cap space as an asset. And maybe they do because they're pinching pennies forever and ever and ever. But that's also what's weird. It's okay if you get one of these guys. You've probably exhausted at least 1 first round pick, but maybe 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't want to shell out for DeAndre Hunter. Denny Avdia, I think I would love to, but there's no way the Wizards give him up.
I will say, I'm a huge Denny Avdia fan, and I see all these people kind of lusting after Denny Avdia, and I just want to note, I'm not looping you into them. If you all think this highly of the 22-year-old, Washington shouldn't move him.
Right. Exactly. Or they're going to ask for a ton. I know Lauri Markkanen has been another possible or favorite on Sixers Twitter. It's we'll get we'll sign Paul George to trade for Lauri Markkanen. It's how are you doing both?
And it's just Lowry would be a great fit, but he's not someone you want to throw the full boat of picks at. Even I've thought about Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
And just it doesn't seem like the Nets have the motivation because of their own pick situation, but that's probably the worst player that I am going that aggressively where it costs me. I mean, I give up all the picks if I'm the Sixers for him. I'm not going to lie, just because some of those are not going to have that much value. But I'm also sitting there the Nets might not do that because there's no players. I mean, the number, what is it? It's a 16 pick or whatever. Okay, that's coming back. Awesome. But
yeah. And I mean, every team's going to have Mikal. Mikal would be my number 1 on the trade market, but every team's going to want to go after him because of his contract. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fascinating offseason. I think, across the league, we're going to see this debate of, I want to frame it as big threes because Mikal could be part of a big 3 and he's not on a third max contract. So you can easily have a big 3 if one of the 3 guys is earning half as much as your other 2.
Yeah, or if 2 of them are on, what the Thunder are eventually going to have, where there's at least 3 guys. Well, 2. So you have the 2 rookie maxes, in
Right.
J-Dub and Chet Holmgren at some point, and then you have Shea, and then maybe because I don't know what's gonna happen with Josh Giddey, they better not give him the max. I know he just had a
No.
good series in New Orleans, but, so, like, it needs to be, like, that type of setup where it's, like, all
Yeah.
these like, the younger maxes.
Or even what the Knicks have with Jalen. I mean, it won't last for more than another season,
That's why
but
there's urgency for them too. You
right.
know, like, yeah,
And
enjoy
but
this playoff ride, but, like, you're coming on some, like, really, like, critical decisions because 'cause you're not gonna have this flexibility forever.
yeah, but Jalen Brunson is earning half of a max right now. Like he's gonna earn twice as much after next season as he is for the next year or whatever year plus. So, like I think those models are feasible, but difficult. And I think I have a piece coming out of Bleacher Report at some point about this, about kind of like the how the Suns hastily assembled this big three and just basically flipped the middle finger to the second apron and continued to flip a middle finger to the second apron and just got swept in the first round.
And in
So
reality, when you listen to Matt Ishbia, 26 other
yeah.
teams would trade
Oh my god.
places with us.
Oh, that press conference, man. I
Look, the only thing I'll say is, like, if you're gonna be a predatory lender, maybe that business is really good, so perhaps they could afford the second apron, but
sure.
yeah. The Sixers are fascinating. So to put a bow on it, do you think there's like I don't want to say a seismic move because I think we're both in agreement that a star feels like, but like we should expect this roster to make some, like this front office to make some type of, if it's not an all-in trade, it's or signing, it's okay. They were aggressive and we're looking
Yeah.
at 2 or 3 guys who crack our top 5, 6, 7 players, like new faces, not they're going to run it back to the extent that they're kind of punting until the trade deadline or kicking the can to then.
Yes, I think absolutely. I mean, they were relying on Nick Batum, who might retire, Kyle Lowry, who they got off the buyout market. He says he's not going to retire, but who knows? And even if he doesn't, I don't think you want to be starting 38-year-old Kyle Lowry at least in the regular season. So yeah, I think they basically have to, like, their hands are being forced here. I mean, Tobias Harris, there's just no way he's coming back. I would be mortified if he came back. So like those are already 3 of your 6
Yeah.
top 6 guys for the playoff rotation that you need to replace for next year.
Where do we want to head next?
Let's just stay in the East. Let's do Bucks because they are also facing some tough decisions. Not quite as honestly kind of the polar opposite of the Sixers, where the world is the Sixers' oyster this summer because they have so much flexibility. The Bucks are locked in to their current core at least for one more year, and then after that, we have some tough decisions for them. But Dame, Giannis, Chris, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, all under contract through 24-25. I mean, honestly, Dan, I'm proud of Twitter, or at least maybe I've just curated my Twitter down to avoid this kind of idiocy. But I expected more people to be clowning both the Heat and the Bucks for losing in the first round this year, and it just seems like the collective response was, yeah, I mean they just got injuries, like they had no chance.
I mean, to be
Giannis,
fair, especially the Bucks. I mean, well, the Heat had I mean, Bam was available. Like, no Jimmy. Jaime Hawkins is banged up by the end of it. They gave up a first round pick for Terry Rozier, and then he's not available for them in the playoffs. That's
right?
yeah. I guess I understood the trade. I wasn't a big fan of it at the time, but that looks even shakier now. So yeah, I mean, they had legitimate excuses. Even Kevin Pelton wrote the piece for ESPN.com that we're on pace to have all-star players miss more collective games during the postseason than like not ever, but like in not even just post pandemic, but like it's reaching levels where during the pandemic of the playoffs that we're about to have more collective aggregate like star games missed, which is
Wow.
that sucks.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. I mean, it kind of puts the Bucks in a difficult spot because they obviously had a lot of turmoil all year. Start with the Dame trade, mid-season coaching change, injury, like Chris Middleton in and out of the lineup for a lot of the year. Giannis gets hurt late, so we don't have a good read on this team. I feel like, is that fair to say? Like I don't know if they are a championship contender as currently assembled, and I don't know that they know that either.
Yeah, I mean, that is the challenge. I will say that I think we all sort of collectively underestimate how sometimes these really high end formations can take time.
Yeah.
And so I would expect Damian Lillard, Giannis, if they get to go through another training camp together, I think it's really good for the Bucks, by the way, that Dame, everyone was kind of like, well, is there going to be a curveball of a Giannis trade request or another Dame trade request? Damian Lillard was talking about next season in his exit
Mm-hmm.
interview. And I think that's a positive. And I would expect, especially with Doc Rivers now having the team through training camp, that we will see more synergy between Giannis and Dame, and that'll go a long way. And I think the way Chris Middleton closed his season offensively in the playoffs, that winds up being a big deal. I think with their challenge, more like I'm less worried about them at the top because even if you dig into the numbers, their four best guys are on the court. They're just annihilating opponents still. And so you can't play all 48 minutes that way. You need to get to the end of the regular season. That's the challenge. You have Bobby Portis, he's extension eligible. That's like your fifth and only. Like that's where the trustworthy guys end, right? Like you don't trust Connaughton. Malik Beasley's gone because you don't have his bird rights, and I thought he had a really good year. I thought he defended well for them. Everyone clowned the Bucks defense, and rightfully so at points, but I thought he put up a nice fight. They didn't, and I think what's really bad for them is they didn't give enough run, whether it was under I was about to call him Darvin Ham, but under Adrian Griffin or Doc Rivers, like to not see Livingston more or Marjon Beauchamp more. Now you don't really know what you have in those young guys, and so it's what can you do? They have Connaughton's salary, and they can trade their 2031 first round pick if they want to get
Mm-hmm.
really spicy. I was looking in prep for this podcast. They come so close, and I don't know if the Bulls would do this, but like they could go because they can't aggregate salaries. They come so close to being able to flip Connaughton in that 2031 pick, and then if they want to include any other picks or swaps to get Alex Caruso, but it's like he's at 9.9 million, and I think Connaughton's at 9.5, so they can't even go that route.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'm with you though. I think them preaching continuity is a good thing. Like I'm totally aligned with they could be fine if they just have more time together and they have a chance to round out their supporting cast. It will be challenging because I believe they are one of the second apron teams, so can't aggregate contracts, won't have a mid-level exception in free agency. So they've got to really nail minimum signings, any draft picks that they may or may not have. I think that the big question I have for this team is Doc Rivers, whether it's fair or not. I mean, he's a great regular season coach, but he has the reputation he has in the playoffs. I'm not holding this playoff run against him for obvious reasons, but we saw some of the same issues that have plagued Doc over the years, even in the playoffs, where Andre Jackson Jr. gave them a big spurt of life in one of these games, and then we're still seeing him just prefer these dusty old veterans, whether it's Gallo or Pat Bev, instead of the young guys. And we saw it with the Clippers, we saw it in Philly, where he just goes with these exhumed corpses instead of the guys that you need to build around moving forward. And I think I wrote about this for Forbes a couple months ago. If you're a second apron team, I think you almost have to start building more or relying more on your youth. And I think the Denver Nuggets have been a really cool example of that this year, where, they just won a freaking championship last year, lose Jeff Green, lose Bruce Brown in free agency, and say, you know what? We're not going to try to patch these holes. In fact, they made a proactive trade during the finals last year to get more near-term draft capital, are leaning on the likes of a Christian Brown and a Peyton Watson, and realize we need these guys to hit. We need these guys to get reps, and because we've got them under contract for multiple years, if they hit and if they can round out our bench, we have full faith in our starting five. And I think the Bucks, at least 4/5 of their starting five, are locked in. I wonder if they are going to be willing to commit to the young guys like they might need to. And more specifically, is Doc Rivers going to be willing to commit to the young guys as he needs to? Maybe the solution is just don't sign.
Right. I was going to say, they might not have a choice.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. It's like the money ball. Can't play Pena. Because now we're not going to give you these, we're not signing anyone over the age of 32 to a minimum contract. We're going to force your hand here. I think that might honestly be the right play for Milwaukee this summer.
Yeah, but it's the other thing that they do think they need to be open to is, and this Bobby Portis would be the guy, unless they think it could be Brook Lopez, which I don't think it should. you
Mhm.
might need to look, especially with Bobby Portis being extension eligible, do you try and break him up into 2 smaller contracts where it's like if you could, and maybe you structure it as like, because you can't aggregate, but it's separate. Like you
Mhm.
have that
Mhm.
2031 pick and you have Bobby Portis. And if you can get back Alex Caruso and Torrey Craig for that deal, assuming Torrey Craig opts in, it almost feels like something you need to consider because I do think that big man play. I know Bobby Portis did a little had some. I mean, he's not a great defender, but I know what he can do for you on offense. But it's just easier to approximate even floor spacers in that 4 or 5 spot, mostly that like that 5 spot on the cheap than it is to what we need like this wing or we need some point of attack defense, which I mean, they need both, I would argue, just because they
Mhm.
reserve wings or Jay Crowder, who's not a wing, Malik Beasley, who's gone and is also not a wing. And like they haven't their actual wings like Livingston and then Marjan Beauchamp, you just don't have the information on. I wonder if that's something they need to consider and whether they will, because it's great that the top of your roster really performed well in like when all said and done and together. Like even if you thought the Dame and Giannis were disconnected, the numbers with them on the court, like they were fine. But like you need more than like these top 4 or 5 guys now. And
Mhm.
I'm curious to see whether they consider it because like even just floating around looking like the second apron, this is so challenging because okay, you have that Pat Connaughton salary, but it's 9.5. How are you breaking that up into 2 smaller deals, really? And it's who's the best player if you dangle that 2031 pick and for the most expensive player you're willing to give up, which I would say is
Mhm.
I'd probably view Middleton, Lopez, Giannis, and Dame as just the guys they're not looking to move. And so it's okay, Bobby Portis' salary, which is sub 12 million. Who's the just if as a hypothetical, what is the best? I'm not even asking you to answer it because I'm
Mhm.
throwing it on the spot. But what is the best package? Because maybe it's not even a player. Maybe you're getting 2 players for Bobby Portis. But if you put that on the table, what is the best package that you could actually get?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, they can't get players back via sign and trade either. So that's going to close a lot of their potential options here. Yeah, I'm going to look at pulling up all right, this 2024-25 salary rankings here. So Bobby Portis,
Well, it's like, could you
oh
get?
boy.
But like, why would you do this? Is you could use Bobby Portis to get you Matisse Thybulle, who would make some
Yeah,
sense on this
yeah.
team, but you don't want to give up a 2031 first round pick for Matisse Thybulle. And I don't think Thybulle was good enough. I know his 3-pointer kind of fell off by the end of the year, but like Portland's not gonna. Again, we don't have enough information on Marjan Beauchamp to say, well, if you kind of, and then even then, it's we can't aggregate salaries, and you're not. So
Right.
it's like
Yeah, I don't think people have really like fully wrapped around their head around how much the second apron. Like I know we know the rules now, but like the aggregation thing in particular is such a seismic change from how things have worked in the past. It's really going to affect how teams conduct business. It's going to tie their hands to an extent that they have not been tied before. Because yeah, I'm looking at just guys. I'm just going to rattle off guys in the like same salary range as Bobby Portis. Brandon Clark on Memphis, Marvin Bagley, Robert Williams III, Kobe White, absolutely not from the Bulls. Zubac, Wendell Carter Jr., PJ Tucker. They could get PJ Tucker. He played well in Game 6.
actually,
Uh,
after he gets bought out or whatever happens, maybe he's probably something they should
uh,
look at trying to get.
Dante DiVincenzo. I'm going to guess the Knicks would politely decline. Terrence
Now,
Mann.
so if they went, it would be close. But if they went like strictly the bare minimum route, they do technically have room beneath the second apron. Like I think they have. Well, the sheet I'm looking at is I'm like 3.1 million underneath the second apron. And so if you really wanted to toe the line, you could get to a point where you could at least aggregate salaries.
Maybe that's the play. Maybe like
Because
make
you go, because then just in theory, if you went Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton and a 2031 first round pick, like is that and Marjon Beauchamp's in there? Like, does that do anything to just increase the? I mean, it definitely increases your optionality in terms of what you could get back, but what would actually be out? Is it just can we just like pilfer the Bulls? Where if that's the package, can we get Io DeSumo and Caruso and throw Torrey Craig in there? If he hops in and like you kind of remake your rotation that way.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering how this second apron, or even just these teams that are willing to trade distant first round picks, but it's their only like thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can front offices talk themselves into that as okay, like that's the Bucks' 2031 first round pick is an objectively a great asset. If you're the front office trading for that, you more likely than not understand that you're not going to be the front office making that pick. And so
Right.
how do you view it or sell it as the primary carrot in any deal? And it's just, is Marjon Beauchamp, let's again, just assuming they could aggregate, is that enough of a immediate sweetener to say, hey, look, we got this guy. And so, and again, even if
Maybe.
you are able to do that, it's you still really have to toe a crazy like if you're only $3.1 million beneath the second apron, you have
Yeah.
no like there's no margin for error there.
Maybe that'll be John Horst. I mean, there's all these rumors about him possibly going to Detroit. Maybe he'll just make this move, trade the 2031 pick, and then leave for Detroit. Because it's like, whatever. I'm not the one who's gonna have to deal with this. I don't care.
Well, I feel like is it what's harder to make the call to trade it or to be the GM or executive that says this is the primary asset in the deal? There's nothing else. It's like Bobby Portis is fine. Pat Connaughton is like this is the primary. What's harder? I think it's the latter to accept that okay, this 2031 pick is intensely valuable. It's also 6-7 years away.
Yeah, I would think personally, I would say the former. Because
Okay.
even if you aren't the one who's gonna make that pick, that still goes on your resume. Is that you had the foresight to
Okay.
make this deal for a faraway asset, knowing that it could be extremely valuable. And I like that's the type of forward looking move that if I were an owner trying to hire a front office executive, I would be encouraged by that. And I would be very discouraged by our hands are very tied, so we're going to trade the only remaining pick that we could trade.
This feels like the quintessential team that because I wouldn't recommend even if it's Alex Caruso, I'd consider it if you were able to get him and that pick is included. But that's
Yeah.
like he's on an expiring contract. He's on the wrong side of 30, and it's is he closing games for you? I guess you just downsize and play him and Dame together in the backcourt. That's fine. But I just don't even. It seems like they're a team I'm getting at that they're very much going to just have to get lucky on the minimum market, where it's like, oh, did Chris
Yeah.
Dunn kind of fall through the cracks here, and that gives us our point of attack defender guy to go after dudes who will still give us nothing on offense. So it's such a. I agree that they shouldn't do anything dramatic when looking at their top four guys, but I do kind of think they might need to get creative outside of the top four because I don't know if look at the other teams in the East aside from Boston now, where you don't just default to Milwaukee as the biggest threat to the Celtics. All these other teams, the
Yeah.
Sixers, the Knicks, just have more optionality. And that's to say, like, the Cavs are running into a pivotal offseason themselves, but they're still there. And then the Magic have
Magic.
cap
Yeah.
space assets. Like they could really make
Yeah.
some noise. Indy they still have stuff to move around if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging summer in a sense that I don't think they should do anything drastic, but they also might need to get creative on the trade market if they want to do anything then bolster their rotation with guys who are making more than the minimum. Because we just saw what happens in Phoenix if you rely too much on these minimum guys. The Bucks got, you could say, lucky or skilled at convincing, but you're not. That's not going to be every minimum signing because for every Malik Beasley, there's the Jay Crowder or worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even the Suns. I mean, I would say Eric Gordon, Drew Eubanks, Josh Okogie were all hits. They also had. I'm sorry to bring up Yuta Watanabe as a miss, but
That
he.
hurts.
I'm
Honestly,
sorry, but
I don't even know that. I was just gonna say I think Drew Eubanks ended up being a miss. Like he was
okay,
not good
yeah.
for them. And then but also like Josh Okogie doesn't really didn't end up playing as much for them. So is that a hit when he becomes like this breaking case of emergency dude, basically?
I'm only including them as hits because they were in their playoff rotation, and I don't know if that's a
Fair
good
enough.
thing or a bad thing because they got swept in the first round. So maybe maybe they had even fewer hits than I'm giving them credit for. But even if we do include those three, it was like Utah, Chimezi Metu, Keita Bates-Diop, all of whom they flipped for Royce O'Neal at the deadline, none of whom really made an impact for them. Like I think you're absolutely right. You have to rely on these minimum deals, but you can't feel good about it. So, part of me thinks seeing what Middleton did in the playoffs could give them some hope going into next year, because I mean he missed what, close to 30 games this year
Yeah.
and didn't really look like that version of Chris Middleton, like the level up version of Chris Middleton, and we won't if everyone is healthy because Dame and Giannis are still going to be the primary focal points in Milwaukee. But it was if nothing else, it was just nice to see peak Middleton back for a couple games.
Well, and the other thing here too that I feel like probably hasn't gotten enough run, and I honestly don't know the reason why, but like, what if you just get like, what if I just tell you that Damian Lillard is Damian Lillard next year?
Yeah,
Like we saw some real fall off from like the pressure he put on defenses with the drives and stuff. Okay, great. He had some really big clutch moments, but like the shooting was not there for a lot of this year. And he had some of his highest highs without Giannis. And so like if you just say Dame is better, which is not like not to say he has the best season of his career like he did in 23, 22, 23, but is closer to that than what he was this year, that becomes like almost its own free agent acquisition.
yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, he was pretty candid about the off court stuff that he was dealing with, and I don't know if he. I would imagine that stuff is still going to be lingering next year, but
People
maybe
troll
not
him
as
for that,
intense.
but I do feel like when you've never been traded, and like it was his prerogative to get traded, although I think the Blazers kind of like they wanted to trade him and didn't
Yeah,
want to be the ones to ask for it.
yeah,
But like that's the first time it happened in his career. It's got to be an adjust. Like even if he went to Miami, it would have been an adjustment period. Just because he went to the team
yeah.
that he would have wanted to doesn't mean it would have been. Yeah, it might have been easier. He might have liked the market better. But so I think maybe maybe I underestimated that too. Like it's not something I had factored. So if he's just more comfortable in Milwaukee, like more settled next season, that could be a big deal.
Yeah, like he has had his whole like friends and family in Portland for a decade, and then moving away from that, and like you've got kids, like it's that's tough to uproot your life, and I know he had some family stuff going on this year as well. Like it is important to remember, as much as we tend to discount this, these people are humans and have human real life issues. Like I am moving in a few months as well, and I am very stressed about that. Is it affecting my performance at work? Not yet, but it will.
And there's a level of that's what the money is for, but you can't just delete human reaction, human emotion from the equation. Honestly,
Right.
as much as people hate or claim that they hate talking about this like post-mortem stuff where it's transactions, I feel like I'll call it the rise because we both know that the numbers on these things do not do well of sort of the X's and O's or celebratory, or as I like to call it, like masturbatory coverage. Um, it it dehumanizes them just as much, if not more, because it boils down players to just X's and O's, and people think that it's just a higher level of thinking about the game. But when you're so focused on like it's just another way of dehumanizing them when you're looking at them as
Mhm.
X's and O's. I'm not saying it's worse than what we're talking about when it comes in terms of trades, but yes, there's the level of okay, that's what the money's for, is you need to deal with this shit. But it's also the money is really for this the money's for a variety of reasons, but one of them is yeah, you can just be moved and you didn't have a no
Right.
trade clause like you're gone. But like that doesn't change the way what it takes to adapt or how long it takes to adapt.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think it's a really good point on like if Milwaukee just gets fully healthy Middleton and something next year of Dame that more closely resembles the Damian Lillard they thought they were getting this year. Like I'm not ready to bury them, even though they do have Doc Rivers
No,
as their head
I
coach.
still would. By the way, I still would have made the Damian Lillard trade. I know there's some people that
Yeah.
think like I absolutely still would have made that trade. Now, could they have done a better job of perhaps that whole secrecy with Drew Holiday? Had they not done that, could they have then maybe controlled where Drew Holiday went? Because that was kind of
Yeah.
an undoing. They not only did he just end up on a team in the East, he ended up on literally the biggest. Like they strengthened the team that was their
Right.
biggest obstacle to coming out of the East.
Yeah, that was not optimal for either the Bucks or anyone else not named Boston in the East. So thank you for that, John Horst.
Do we want to go to the Clippers?
I think yeah, I was gonna say you were talking about what the money is for. Like a perfect time to transition to the Clippers because they're kind of in the middle ground of where the Bucks and the Sixers are in that they could have a lot of flexibility this offseason. I mean, they signed Kawhi Leonard to the 3 year, slightly below max extension in January. James Harden by virtue of just when he was traded, is not eligible to sign an extension. He has to become a free agent. Paul George has been eligible to sign an extension, will remain eligible to sign an extension until June 30th, has yet to do so. Neither George nor Harden were ready to commit on the spot during their interview after Game 6. Both of them just said, "Oh, I haven't
First of
thought
all,
about it yet."
speaking of James Harden is a liar. Let's
Yeah.
quote him and like
Yes.
turn around and what is his market? Is Detroit's not even going to give James Harden like Detroit,
No.
Orlando, they're not going to do it. I don't think what is the team? Where's your market, Mr. Harden? Honestly.
I don't know. Well, I liked that both of those guys said they hadn't thought about it, as if, I mean, James, you've been thinking about it for more than a year now. You forced
Right,
your way out of Philly
right,
because you've
right.
been thinking about your next contract. And Paul George, pretty sure you've been thinking about it, or else you would have signed the extension already. So, yeah, I do enjoy the hypocrisy there. But yeah, I think that is the thing working in the Clippers' favor for Harden. Is like I'm completely with you. It's not like he has a player option that he could pick up this time and force his team's hand and force him to trade him. It's
I was even trying
you
to think of
have to
like
be.
because and for I know you know this, but like the Clippers can sign and trade James Harden if they wanted to. They cannot
Sure.
acquire someone via sign and trade. I was trying to think like what would be the team that could maybe just talk themselves into it. And I just can't. James Harden was their best player during the first round. Like maybe you want to go if you want to go with Zubats there, or that's fine. But he had a good playoff series for the most part. He's
Yeah.
the reason I would say the primary reason they won two games in that series.
Yes. Yes.
But so he's still a very good player, but and he did show that he can kind of fit into a larger ecosystem. But like I just still struggle to come. It's almost like he's become the Julius Randle of like actual megastars to where he has intense value to his team, but it's so hard to peg which outside teams might view him as valuable. It's a little bit easier because James Harden is the superior player. But like I'm just trying like if you let's just say could sign and trade James Harden anywhere, like what is the team? Like what?
Houston.
They're not going to do that after they got
No.
Amin
No.
Thompson and Şengün and Van Fleet now. That would be a
I know.
disaster.
I just worry. Houston's the one team that just like they feel like they're gonna do something stupid. Like you should just continue on this path, and I think it will end up well for you. But if you try to continue taking shortcuts, it's going to backfire. Hopefully
Brooklyn
last
would be
summer.
funny.
Oh my god, that would be really
Brooklyn needs
funny.
creation. That'd be hysterical.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, it will depend on whether they can retain George. If both George and Harden leave, this is not an issue. But another one of the new fun second apron things, you can't even take back contracts if you're over the second apron if you sign and trade your own guys away. So like if they re-signed Paul George to a max and they wanted to sign and trade James Harden and get back roughly equivalent in terms of salary, they wouldn't be allowed to do it. It's just
Picks, just picks.
yeah. I mean picks or just like less salary. I mean they could stay under the second apron and take back money,
Right. Yeah,
but yeah,
but
like
that's
they
like
can't.
virtually impossible to. Well, I guess it's because it's the inbound money. It's not impossible, but then it has to be one of the cap space teams because
Yeah,
they're sending out
basically.
like such an exorbitantly like. It would have to be like if Orlando really just wanted to go the James Harden route and they're willing to give you Jonathan Isaac while
Yeah,
maxing out James Harden, and
yeah.
it's like that is just such an ultra specific scenario.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's gonna work in the Clippers' favor in these renegotiation or the negotiations, the contract talks. Like,
So what
so
do you
they can
think?
say who is paying you? You want a 4-year max? Go find it, and he's not gonna be able to.
Maybe he'll call them a liar afterwards. Was that how that was?
can
Well, so
we just revisit that for a sec? Like, all of this boiled down to the Sixers last year, I think, saw the writing on the wall with the new CBA and saw that especially stars in their mid 30s who might be on the decline probably shouldn't give them a 4-year max.
yeah,
So
unless you're
like,
like a Steph or LeBron, like I think those players in that age bracket, even Paul George might fit into this. They might be in
yeah,
for a rude awakening.
I think they are. I mean, I think Paul George, because in theory, Philly and Orlando are interested in him, at least has the leverage to possibly get the full 4-year max. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea, but I think he might be able
Right.
to. And frankly, the years are probably the bigger concern than the amount of money. Like if you do 3-year max, I have less concern than you do a 4-year max. But I think the Kawhi deal was it was meant to send a message to George and Harden. And you could say, oh, well, he took less because of his injury history or whatever. He took a lot. He took a year less than he could have, and
Yep.
he took $10 million less than he could have. And I think as soon as he did that, that was telling Paul George and James Harden, you are not getting a 4-year max here. Like, if you want to continue building around 3 stars, this is the way we have to do it under this new CBA. So I think you're absolutely right. These stars in their mid 30s, especially, who have just grown accustomed to, oh, I'm gonna keep being showered with max contracts for as long as I
Right.
continue playing basketball. I think that faucet might be turning off, and I think Kawhi might have seen that writing on the wall a little earlier than some of these other guys have.
Imagine if he didn't sign the extension. I wonder where that number ends up. Like, because first of all, people could talk about, well, he might just go somewhere else. I'm pretty sure that even if the Clippers traded him right now, he would just retire.
Yeah.
Like but I was going to ask you then, though, there's a chance Paul George gets the max. Maybe it's not because it won't be from the Clippers then. But James Harden, so looking at what his max could be, what is that? What does that one check in? 47.6? That's what we estimated at?
Higher. I think it's 49.4, I believe.
Oh yeah, you're right. Wow, I'm looking at the wrong year on my sheet.
Yeah.
So
A 5-year max he can't get a 5-year max because the over
yeah, so the
38.
4-year
4-year
max is
max.
221.1. That's from a
Yeah.
different. I know actually that would be from the Clippers. So it'd be from a team like an outside team can give him 212.2.
Yeah. And one thing to note, sorry, just on George before we go back to Harden. George is also subject to the over 38, so he can't get a 5-year max from the Clippers. Not that I think that would be on the table anyway, because they clearly, if a 4-year
over
max is on the
38
table.
is so weird because what is it? It can't. Isn't there an exception where it's like if you're not 38 by October during that contract that it's okay to fly? So he still falls under that because he turns 36, 37. Yeah, so 38 in May. Okay.
So yeah,
but
so like the Clippers don't have a ton of, like, they can offer him 221.1, other teams can offer 212.2, and California state taxes are so absurd that I think, like, frankly, I think if the Clippers and Orlando were both willing to offer him a 4-year max, I think he would make much more money in Orlando with no state taxes than he would in California with whatever 13%.
So, well, let's play this game with the two of them. So let's keep it with Paul George, knowing where their max salaries for next season. Check in 49.4 million for both of them. Where is I don't know where to set the over under for Paul George because it kind of feels like he's just gonna. So for him, it's more of a question of does Paul George, is he making max money next season? You think he is?
I think so. If anything, I would try to structure it like the Clippers did, front load, or with Kawhi deal, front load it and then try to shave some money off of the latter years. So I think he gets the full max salary, and then, whether it's a full 4-year max deal and max salaries throughout, which would be, 53.3 million in 25-26, 57.2 in 26-27, and then 61.2 million in 27-28 when that's his age 37 season, I believe. So that's a lot of money. But
I'm gonna set the over under for James Harden's next year's salary at, let's go 39.7 million. Let's just use a really fucked up exact number. Are you taking the over or the under on that? His max, as we know, is, well, now that we don't know because I keep 47.4.
Yeah.
49.4, excuse me. So that would be like 10 million less than his max. Would you go over or under on it? We should probably just use 40 million instead of me being an asshole. So over under $40 million average annual value for James Harden.
Is this what I think is going to happen or what should happen?
No. We both. What should happen is no. He shouldn't. But look, the NBA sets itself up for this because you only allow, like, these players get paid as they get older. They're under cost control for really their first 8. If you're a star, the first 7 to 9 years of your career, looking at how the max works, and then so you're paying these guys for what you get to a point where you're not paying them for what they're going to do. You're paying them for what they've already done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not unique to James Harden. It's not an insult to say he's not going to be worth that at the end of his deal. It's just that's what it is. I'm very curious what you think is going to happen though, because his situation feels fascinating in the sense that it doesn't seem like he has a ton of leverage, but you can't, like, the Clippers aren't just going to hardball this to the moon and back, are they? Where no, you're just going to get another $35 million deal and you'll be happy with it.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about how hardballing James Harden works. If they would like a reminder, I think there was a
Where's he
sign
going to go this
posted
time,
across.
though? That's the other. If
I
you really wanted
know.
to be, this is the franchise that traded Blake Griffin after pitching him on being a Clipper for life. So maybe they would super hardball it. Who knows?
Yeah, they might. Oh man, I think 40 sounds right. Like I don't know if he goes much higher or much lower. They should try to get him as low as possible. Not, but he's not going to get like a mid-level exception, but like I I think closer to what Draymond took from the Warriors last year would be ideal. There's no way they're going to get him to accept that, but frankly, I think all of this stems back from he has given up so much money in recent years. Like the Nets offered him, it was like 3 years, 160 million or something like that, and he said no because he thought he was getting 220, and he has just continued to kick the can down the road, and he's now cost himself, probably going to
Lots
end
of
up
money.
costing himself $100 million.
Right.
So I think he's trying to recoup some of what he gave up over the past few
But there's
years.
not even, at least, and we all kind of thought it was smoke and mirrors just based off their direction. But there's no stalking horse. There's no Houston Rockets rumor. Like, what? There's been
Yeah,
no team that's been linked to James Harden
no,
as of now.
no. I don't know. I mean, you raise a very good point of like who is out there that makes sense even as a sign and trade target. Like just because of how the second apron stuff and how the salary matching stuff works, it's just so much more complicated. Like, could you sign and trade James Harden to Miami for Jimmy Butler? In theory, maybe you could talk yourself into it if Paul George leaves, but like these CBA rules are going to basically make that impossible. So the CBA rules themselves probably wipe out half of the map right from the jump, and then are the San Antonio Spurs going to go after James Harden to to
Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him work the
just
2-man game with Victor
throw him
Wembanyama,
last?
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, yeah, and that's the thing. I come off as a Harden hater because of
You
how
hating
he handled
Harden.
himself. Well, just how he handled himself in his departure. Like I think the Sixers were right to draw the line where they did, and I think he's gonna realize the Clippers do a very similar thing this offseason, or they should do a very similar thing this offseason. But like to your point, he is still a productive player. He was still a connective tissue. Like that, the Clippers had that 2-month stretch where they looked like one of the best teams in the NBA this year.
Yeah.
And he was a huge part of that. The passing has not gone away. I mean, he's lost some lift. I'm not as afraid of him as a scorer as you were a couple of years ago, but like he's still an exquisite passer. So I mean, the Wemby pairing would be fun. It's just like, why are you hitching your wagons to a 35-year-old James Harden?
Maybe
If
you
you're
view it
the
as like,
Spurs?
oh, it's short term. I mean, the Spurs aren't going to do
Yeah,
this, but if it's a 3-year deal, and it's like, okay, this is our bridge. Like as soon as Wemby's
yeah,
maxed out, like that's when we're like moving on from. So we spent a lot of time though with the Clippers talking about talent retention. When they do need like a talent infusion, just
yeah,
I think you could use a different type of big man look behind Zubats to where their small lineups when they went to them was basically like, oh, Kawhi's your 5, or we saw PJ Tucker play the 4 actually in game 6, which again, you know, that's not the look that you want to see. Is this going to be a team? They're limited to minimums, but it's like we know what they need. Probably some more athleticism, someone who cares about getting back in transition.
mm,
But there's also Russell Westbrook as a player option, or he could be an early bird free agent. Are they going to plan on paying him? Are they a team that's they could trade a first round pick? Are they a team that's willing? The thing I've thought about, speaking of Alex Caruso, like PJ Tucker, that distant first round pick, maybe some seconds for
oh,
Alex Caruso. Like, is that you're giggling, but it's just, if you're going to keep Harden and Paul George, your window is right to hell now.
yeah. No, I'm just giggling because I think if Bulls fans hear that, they're gonna light themselves on fire thinking about going from. I mean, like you want, just like the Bucks, you want the Clippers later picks. Like the Sixers got a 2028 fully unprotected first from the Clippers in the Harden deal. And I think the value of that pick has increased
Yeah,
exponentially since that
for
trade.
sure.
Because you're absolutely right. I mean, that was one of the things that stood out in the Mavericks series was, I mean, the Clippers throughout like most of the Kawhi and Paul George tenure, one of the big selling points was this is one of the deepest teams in the NBA. And one of the drawbacks of the deal that they made for James Harden was they gave away a lot of that depth and a lot of it was on the wing. Like they did not have many guys that they could rely on in their playoff rotation with Kawhi hurt. So it's a very fair question. How do you round out the supporting cast, especially, if you bring back Paul George, you bring back Harden on max or near max deals, you are very likely going to be a second apron team. You're going to face the same restrictions that the Bucks will this summer, that the Suns did last summer. Like it's going to be very hard. And I think that should honestly force the Clippers. I think they're gonna who was it? Sam Amick and I forget. The Athletic is releasing these like postmortems as soon as most of these teams get knocked out of the playoffs, and Amick said like they want to run back this big three. They've got the new Intuit Dome opening next year. Like they are gonna want to retain their star power, but you would think that just some of these high profile flameouts of big threes, not only their own but just across the league, notably Phoenix's as well, would just make them take a step back and reconsider. But to their credit, I think they have already realized we should not just give out full 4-year maxes to any of these guys. Like I think they are more aware of how to build moving forward than the Suns.
And there's also, I think what's different because Matt Ishbia feels like the human embodiment of smoke and mirrors, just sort of just like this used car, shady ass salesman.
Right.
And with Steve Ballmer, I'm not saying this is the case, but insofar as there is at least one owner who really doesn't give a fuck, it is probably him. Like he is the guy. So there's that going for them. But you're mentioning, and you bring up something that just made me think about it. They're in this weird spot where Paul George he should be the player that ages better. But if you are going to get rid, let's just say they decide to bust up the big three because they want to sort of divest into multiple bodies, a Paul George sign and trade or opt in and trade is probably the route that makes the most sense for them just in terms of what the roster needs. Because I think we've just like Paul George and Kawhi can't just shoulder. You need a playmaker. And then so that is James Harden. And then just in terms of the market, there would be more of a demand for Paul George. And then you get into the discussion. I'm honestly asking, like, how much worse would, like, let's say the Spurs were interested in Paul George and it's they want to pair Paul George, Devin Vassell, and Victor Wembanyama and move forward. Are you that much worse if you got like a pick or two and Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson? Like, is that a team like that you could talk to yourself, well, okay, like now we have real depth and we have guys that maybe could grow and we have some picks to stock the deck. But I will say, if you're going to run this back, which I'm fine with, like, as you mentioned, that stretch which lasted basically half the year where they were just dominant, then I'm almost saying like you're obligated to then just trade your 2031 first round pick this summer. Like use that PJ Tucker expiring because like you need to do this. Like you're not even guaranteed next season because of the health of Kawhi Leonard. And that, by the way, that would be the Galaxy brain take, is that it makes the most sense to trade Kawhi and move forward with Paul George and James Harden.
I mean, I'm not totally out on that idea. As you said, I think Kawhi is just the risk of him just saying no.
We're top behind. Yeah.
Right.
And Clippers fans definitely, it seems like they turned on Paul George by the end of this season.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah. I've gotten that vibe as well. Yeah, I mean, to your point, the one other scenario that we haven't discussed here, I know you floated it in a couple of BR pieces as of late. If PG has all the leverage here over the Clippers because he has the interest from the Sixers and from the Magic. But what if he said, I mean, if you're Paul George, you might be looking at, okay, I can go leave the Clippers, sign with the Sixers, but I'm going to take up most of their cap space. They're also not going to be able to, or they likely won't be able to put a strong supporting cast around me. We're going to be a top-heavy team. So I'm just going to be in the same situation around another injury-prone star just on the opposite coast. What if instead I pick up my player option, or I threaten to pick up my player option, and maybe I just go to the Clippers and I say, look, I want out. I'm going to sign with either Philly or Orlando, but I'm also open to going to these other teams, and I will pick up my player option and facilitate a trade if you trade me to these teams and you can work this out by June 30th. Otherwise, I'm gone. And notably, this year is the first year that teams can start to negotiate with their free agents right after the finals end. So like there will be a legal window in which the Clippers theoretically could say, okay, call up some of these other teams and say, this is what Paul George is threatening to do. You've mentioned the Knicks as a possibility, and the more I think on it, the more I think it actually makes sense for all parties. Some
Yes.
combination of like Randall Bogdanovich is the salary match, and then
And by the way, I think that's the motivation. Knicks fans are kind of already against it. And not just because I wrote about it, but I've seen just kind of like, well, he's old. But the reason you do it is because it doesn't bankrupt your asset play. And so rather than waiting for what you deem the perfect player to become available, to one, you can't guarantee that happens. And two, let's just say the perfect player is Devin Booker, and might be, and he becomes available, shakes loose. You're not guaranteed to have the best offer. Your assets are nice. Right. They're not on the level of a New Orleans. They're not on the level of an OKC. And so you get Paul George because it costs you salary and he has the leverage to like not dictate the package. But, if you start to if the Clippers are like, well, we're not giving you Paul George unless you get Josh Hart or Dante DiVincenzo, that's a weird spot to draw the line in the sand. And I'd be curious to know where the Knicks land on that. But you go after someone like Paul George because since he has the leverage, the idea is you give up Julius Randle, Bogdanovich, and then you give up picks, but it's not as many picks as you would need to trade someone who is younger, under more contract, doesn't have the leverage, a longer contract, doesn't have the leverage that Paul George does. And so if the opportunity cost for Paul George is the package I floated even now feels too ambitious. Like it was 3 first round. It was this year. It was number 24 this year, number 38 this year, that Milwaukee 2025 first, and then a 2026 first, plus Bogdanovich and Julius Randle. I would argue that maybe you don't even need to give up that much if Paul George is the one sort of like maybe that 2026 first round pick just isn't part of it. Yeah. And that's why you do it, because then you're still left with other stuff and your depth.
Yeah. I mean, also worth noting, if you're the Knicks, you can't punt on this indefinitely because Randall is an effectively expiring contract. He's a player option 25 that he's very likely to decline unless he gets hurt again. Bogdanovich is an expiring contract. So you have 1 year. You have a 1 year window to make use of effectively 45-ish million in expiring money before Jalen Brunson's up for a new deal, before Julius Randle's up for a new deal. So like you might not have the luxury of waiting for a Devin Booker or for a Giannis or someone else. Like you need to take advantage of this now. And to your point, if you can get Paul George on the relative cheap relative to his talent, I think it makes sense. And I think it makes sense, like stylistically, fit wise. I mean, I honestly, the one thing giving me pause is who do you bench if you're the Knicks? Because
I think you go with, I'm still team Isaiah Hartenstein over Mitchell Robinson. We'll see if they keep him in free agency. They should. So I think you go Hartenstein, Brunson, OG, and George are your locks. And then I think it's just, we've seen Tibbs will favor Josh Hart over Dante DiVincenzo. And that's, I mean, fine, but like you're still looking. So those are your top 6 guys. You still have Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson. And like that as an 8-man rotation is the second best team in the Eastern Conference as of right now, unless the Sixers pull off something wild or the Cavs do something, or what did the Magic add like LaMelo Ball or something over the, so like that's a real, like that's a caps lock rotation, like of 8 guys. And so I think maybe you see, and Tibbs has gotten more flexible this year. Maybe you see him kind of toggle with the start. He's toggled with the closing 5. Maybe you see him toggle with the starting 5 too, where sometimes it's Hart, sometimes it's DiVincenzo. So but it fits. And you're to the point where it's, we need the shot creation. And Paul George is an imperfect shot creator, as we've seen, but he's never going to be the number 1 option as long as Jalen Brunson is healthy. And there's just so much depth that it's like, he's more of a 2.5 than, you have to be a 2. But it's like, because Josh Hart will get out and run, and because like DiVincenzo will do a little bit of that, or we've seen OG Anunoby will attack some closeouts. I would argue, just because the Knicks are healthier on balance than the Clippers, they might be a team, Thibodeau's view on minutes management notwithstanding, they might be a team that is better suited to help him age gracefully than the Clippers are right now.
Yeah, I honestly think you could talk, if they make that trade, what if Bogdanovich, Randall, and picks. No other players going out. You could talk
Even
me into the
Sim, if the
Knicks.
Clippers want to back up big, like that's someone you could
Sure.
afford to give up to.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not giving up any of the top 8 rotation members that you said. You could talk me into them being the favorites in the East next year, or at least co-favorites with the Celtics.
Especially Boston scares the shit out of me, but the Kristaps
I
health,
mean,
they're the
yeah,
team where I don't think they need, and I think Zach Lowe phrased it this way, so I'm kind of cribbing it from this. I don't think they need Kristaps Porzingis to make the finals. They need him to win the finals.
yeah. But I mean, if well, we might see it in 2 weeks. Like, we might see a Boston New York series in 2 weeks, and we'll see how these two match up and how close it is as is. Hopefully, Kristaps is healthy by that point. I think the Knicks are already going to present a lot of matchup problems for a lot of teams. I think if you get Paul George in there, it would get significantly more difficult to defend them. I I mean, I think I would clearly pick them as much as we just talked, sang the praises of the Bucks and said they're not as screwed as it might seem. Would clearly pick the Paul George, Jalen
I'm
Brunson, OG
I'm actually
Anunoby Bucks.
surprised it's not something just even as like that it's come out because Paul George is looking for leverage to stay in LA. That it's been
Yeah.
so geared towards the Sixers and Orlando. And a part of me thinks this is me galaxy branding this again. I think it's like the Knicks are going to be the Jimmy Butler leverage situation, and I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the fit,
Yeah.
but he has the connection to Tibbs, so it's like
Sure.
that's almost. I'm like that's the thing I'm monitoring from afar that I don't want to happen for them because the Paul George one feels like it just makes so. And even if you're the Clippers, I'm not saying that Julius Randle and Bogdanovich are just these home run acquisitions, but to have guys who will add to your offense, Bogdanovich will add to your spacing if he's healthy, or I shouldn't say add because you're losing Paul George, but can help you float some of that. And like Randall's another he's a better passer than Paul George, I would think at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have other first round picks where if you wanted to go out and do stuff, you still have Bogdanovich as an expiring, Randall as an expiring, and they're big enough to where you can move them independently since you can't aggregate salaries to like get like a real player or more back. Um, like that feels like it makes more sense to me than sending him to Philly in a similar situation because they don't have players to send back for you to
Right.
you.
Right. Yeah. If you're the Clippers, you could still assemble like a semi decent rotation with Paul George, Julius Randle, and James Harden, even if it's not, or no, sorry, Kawhi Leonard, Julius Randle, and James Harden. And then, yeah, if you need to break up Randle at some point or break up Bogdanovich at some point, that's cool. I mean, that'll help you. The salary relief alone, like Bogdanovich comes off the books next year. I don't know if the Clippers would want to be the team that commits to Julius Randle. Maybe they'd send him to Dallas, send him back home.
I don't know why Dallas would commit to him at this point, but
yeah. That's the Randall conversation. It's one for a different day. We need Mort here for that because he would happily tee off. But I mean, I agree with you. I'm surprised we haven't seen the opt-in idea at least soft launched in the media somewhere. But then again, we didn't see it at all with Harden until he was just like, "Oh, surprise! I'm picking up my option." Like there were literally reports from
I don't think
multiple.
the Sixers saw it coming,
They
which
did
is
not.
weird.
They did not. I can. Yes. So we'll see. I think it's a really fascinating offseason for the Clippers for George and Harden, but like the ripple effects of whatever happens with both of those guys, even if they retain both of those guys, as you said, like how do they round out the supporting cast around them is going to be really, really tricky. And I'm morbidly curious for many reasons to see how this all plays out.
Should we spend just a couple minutes on the playoff series that are going to
Yeah,
start?
we have to
Speaking
talk
of the
about
Knicks,
actual basketball. You're
yeah.
telling me? Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's do. So Knicks Pacers starts on Monday.
yes.
What is your? I guess maybe this is the best way for us to like. What is your biggest just question or thing that you're watching, sort of leading into this series?
I want to set an over under on the number of rebounds that Miles Turner gets in this series, and I guess it depends on how many games it goes. So maybe we should do rebounds per game instead. But what, like 4.5? Is that a fair over under? I mean, that's the big concern, I think, for the Pacers. They were not a great rebounding team during the regular season, 28th in the league in terms of total rebounds per game. And as we saw it last year with the Knicks against the Cavs in the first round. We saw it this year against the Sixers, and the Sixers have a freaking 7-2 Joel Embiid, even though he was on one knee. They are just such a physical rebounding team. Honestly, I think the thing that I would be concerned about as a Pacers fan is that, the series against the Giannis-less Bucks and like hobbled Dame-less Bucks, I don't want to take anything away from them. You play who is in front of you. It's awesome for the Pacers to have taken care of business. I think it took a little longer than it should have, but good on them from advancing. The Knicks just emerged from an all-out war in the first round. Like those series are just very different tonally. And I think the Knicks are just more ready for this type of grueling physical matchup that they're going to try to drag this down to. Honestly, I think it's going to be such an interesting contrast of styles because the Pacers are just going to get out and run as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Knicks are going to let them do so because they're such a good rebounding team. So it's who wins the battle of styles might be the biggest question of this series.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing I'm looking for too, because the Pacers, so I'm using post Siakam trade, they were second in average possession time. So the second fastest team, only Washington was faster. The Knicks were 30th. So dead last in average possession time. And so you're looking at a team that will more likely than not slow things down. We've seen the Knicks, they'll get out and run on some of the live ball stuff, but that's very much like Josh Hart dependent. It sort of feels like. And then if you're the Knicks though, can you keep the Pacers? They've been like, especially after live rebounds, the Knicks have been pretty good at preventing teams from getting out in transition. Can you do that against a Pacers team that's going to look to run? But part of the Pacers being able to do that is, can they get the defensive board to get out and run?
Right.
Because the Knicks are so good on the offensive glass. And do you sell out any part of your transition offense to try and put extra bodies to keep the Knicks like from getting those? Because I guess the thing with the Pacers, they'll run anyway, even on like the dead, like after a score of the other team, they'll get out and run anyway. But like if you're going to give the Knicks an opportunity to get their defense set, it's just going to be harder for you to do that. And so this team, more so than that Bucks team, like you're going to have a harder time ending possessions. The other thing I'm kind of looking at is, I'm always just looking at what is Jalen Brunson going to be able to do is just the sole focal point. Like how aggressively will the Pacers defend him? I assume we saw a lot of it in the regular season, like Andrew Nemhard on Jalen Brunson will be maybe we'll see some Neesmith on him a little bit, maybe McConnell at points, but I assume Nemhard will get the primary assignment. But how else are you going about that? Is there anyone? I know there are players that like how much will the Knicks sell out to try and go after Tyrese Halliburton, like to hunt him in the half court? And then how much is Indy in turn going to sell out to prevent that from not happening, but well, we're going to send two to the ball right away or something and make these other guys beat us. And then finally, just because we've never seen it, at least they didn't play each other because OG got injured, I don't think, right? But like OG versus Siakam, I'm just assuming that those are that's how they're going to match up, like on both ends of the floors against each other. That's just going to be really fun to see. And I'm curious, who do you give the edge to in just NBA defenses, even offenses are so complicated. It's never just going to be OG versus Pascal, but who do you give the advantage to in that primary matchup?
Yeah, it's a great question. You would think on the surface, Pascal, he's a more well-rounded player, but
definitely more dynamic. Yeah.
We just saw OG hold his own against Joel Embiid. And not just straight one-on-one. He had a lot of help, but he has a lot more size than like Siakam is big and physical, but he's not as big and physical as Joel Embiid. So I think OG is going to be able to at least hold his own in that matchup defensively. And, to your point, those guys, Lord knows, they probably went against each other in practice for a number of years in Toronto. So this might just be like Nick Nurse might just be having flashbacks watching this series, just thinking back to all of his Toronto days. But yeah, to your point on Brunson, I don't know. Like the Sixers tried a lot of different stuff on him, and they had a lot of different wings they could throw at him. Tobias got switched onto him a lot. They had Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum. Melton didn't play a ton in that series, but he would have been another option. They doubled him. Brunson, it took him 2 games to kind of figure it out, but after that, it was just game on. They could do nothing to stop him. He has, I don't know how you stop the little hesitation, like him driving to the basket and then just stopping. Like if he beats you off the dribble, he's going to draw a foul on you because he knows how to manipulate his body and his driving such that he will stop and you are going to keep running and you're going to come flying over his back. So if you can, I guess that's a key. If Indiana can stay out of foul trouble or just stay out of foul trouble with regard to Jalen Brunson, don't fall for. I don't want to call it like grifting or foul baiting because like especially for someone who covers the Sixers, like I recognize the irony in Sixers people complaining about Jalen Brunson's whistle. Joel Embiid and Kyle Lowry are the kings of this. So, like kudos to him, but that is something that the Pacers are going to have to be very much aware of in this series, that he is going to be trying to draw that kind of contact, and he's very good at drawing that type of contact. And also, I mean, if you have Miles Turner playing in drop, like Brunson has that mid-range game that I mean, every superstar needs, but the floater especially really seemed like he got more and more comfortable with that throughout the Sixers series as well. So I just don't know if Indiana has as many options to throw at him defensively as the Sixers did. And even that wasn't enough to stop him after games 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's such a contrast in styles to where you look at it and I'm wondering, and the Knicks did get up more threes post trade deadline, but they're 17th in 3-point attempt rate out of the 20 teams that made the play-in since the end of the regular season. And so you look at how many threes Indy made just during that, and that's with Tyrese Halliburton shooting very poorly from three, sub 30% again, which is another thing to track, by the way.
Yeah.
It's like Halliburton not seeming to get as deep when he's like attacking, and then also just he's putting up the threes. It feels like it does feel like he's settling actually, but they're not going in at as high a clip. So you look at it and so both of these things last 6 games, the Pacers end up making in their series 84 threes. The Knicks made 71 against the Sixers, but because the Knicks are on the offensive glass and they're a team that can get to the foul line, whereas the Pacers, that's not really something that they rely on. Which gives more? Like, what's going to be the bigger offset, or are we going to have to see one team? And I would argue that if there's going to be a team that has to sort of change their style, it might be the Knicks more than the Pacers, just because the way the Pacers play feels like it's easier to dictate terms with. Now, the Knicks in the offensive glass, that's something that they could absolutely, but in terms of their shot selection, maybe, are they going to have to, get up some more threes in this series? Mm-hmm. And that's where it's, when you kind of look at it, oh, is this a Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart? It's not even Josh Hart is never going to come out of the game, but right. It's like, how much run is Dante DiVincenzo getting? And does it need to be more, because he's someone that you can station out ultra deep and he'll get them up. Josh Hart did a good job of taking the threes, but I'm assuming that's the guy Indy's still going to continue to, I would guess, help or send help from, is Josh Hart when he's on the floor. And then I think, and this is I'm interested to see, like, just because it's been so long, the Knicks were basically playing 6 guys by the end of the Sixers series, because like Deuce McBride, what did he play 11 minutes in game 6? And he's had some really good moments. Do we see any burnout whatsoever? You can tell me the Knicks are conditioned for this. It's fine. I'm just curious. It's so many minutes. We're in May. Like, these dudes have played so many games. Is there any sort of burnout there? And I don't expect Tibbs to expand his rotation. Like, he's just going to play 7. It's going to be 7 guys. But Donovich is injured. And by the way, that's another kind of interesting subplot. I know he wasn't playing a lot, but he added floor spacing and break in case of emergency shot creation. They don't have that. Alec Burks isn't playing. And so did the Knicks. Like, the Knicks won that Sixers series and they had some really high offensive moments, but is their offense like even worse off in this series, even though they're going against an inferior defense than what's just because Philly has Embiid is able to throw at you, because you're dealing with guys playing so many minutes. And now it's just like, you don't even have another lever to pull unless you want to break open Alec Burks or overstretch Deuce, who can do a little bit of that.
Yeah. Also, does Josh Hart continue to shoot like Steph Curry, or does he start shooting like Josh Hart again? That would be, I mean,
that would be like, that's like the flip side of, does Tyrese Halliburton continue to shoot like we think Josh Hart does?
Right.
Or does he progress to his mean?
Yeah. And like, credit to Josh Hart, because I know early in that series, he said, like, I knew this was the strategy coming in, and I spent the entire week leading up to that series just jacking up threes in practice. Like, I knew they were going to target me, and he was able to knock them down. But I think, to your point, they are absolutely going to continue leaving him open. Like, if they're going to double Jalen Brunson, it makes sense to double with Josh Hart's man. So do they continue to do that? Does
Well,
he continue to make them pay?
here's my thing is then does it though? Because you like you need bodies on Josh Hart once that shot goes up to prevent just like the
Yeah.
offensive rebound. Like because he's just everywhere, defensively, offensively, like a magnet to the ball. And so it's do you kind of like, well, should we maybe just chance helping off of just literally anybody else because we need to keep him from getting these like second chance opportunities or ending our own possession just because he's so good at getting the defensive boards as well. It's just I'm most fascinated by Nuggets Timberwolves in the second round, but like because of just you've said it, the contrast in styles here, Knicks versus Pacers is really just peaking. I mean, and obviously my Knicks ties for sure, but
Sure.
it's
Sure.
piquing my attention 6 ways towards Sunday. I can't wait for that series to start. Do you have a prediction for this one?
This might be disrespectful to the Pacers, but I just feel like the Knicks roll here. I could see it. I think it might be
They
like Knicks in 5.
You did mention this at the top. They have this maddening tendency to play worse against worse opponents. And like the Knicks are a better
Mm-hmm.
team than that version of the Bucks. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of kind of wondering, are they going to rise to the occasion here because the Knicks are a better team? And it feels like,
Mm.
it almost feels like had Giannis been available that series, that the Pacers might have been on their A game more often. They might have lost, but they might have just been on their A game more often. I'm going to go Knicks in 6 here. I ultimately just don't think you mentioned this already too. I don't think that there are as many buttons for Rick Carlisle to push here
Mm-hmm.
in this series. And I think if they do beat the Knicks, we look back on it as the offense for the Knicks just fell flat because they ran out of guys who could not even just generate their own shots, but make shots aside from Brunson. And then also we saw Pascal Siakam go full what he was the first 2 games in that Buck series, or
Mm-hmm.
Tyrese Halliburton's shooting starts to look like Tyrese Halliburton again.
Yeah, and like Mitchell Robinson, I know came back in that Sixer series, still seems pretty banged up. So if he leaves again,
We're absolutely having a game, especially if the Knicks make it to the conference finals, where Tibbs doesn't sub anybody out. And maybe it's
yeah,
like
just plays
by
5 guys.
borderline necessity because Bogdanovich is already out and
Yep.
Mitchell Robinson needs to miss another game. And then it's, you know what, I'm
Yep.
just not going to play Deuce tonight. So we're just going to roll with these 5 the entire time.
And they might still win. That's what's sick. Honestly, like I have nothing but respect for what the Knicks have built over the last couple of years, and they found the right brand of sickos for Tom Thibodeau. Like it's really it's an impressive alignment that we don't often see between front office, coaching staff, and players. But they found the right type of guys to buy into the identity that Tibbs has, and like I think this Knicks team, especially after the OG trade, when they were just bum slaying for like it was like a month or so before Randall and OG got hurt, and then they kind of like fell under the radar. But like I think they went under the radar, which is a weird thing to say about the New York Knicks. It's like they never go under the radar, but like I don't think people really appreciated how good this Knicks team is. I think they are for real. I think they could be even scarier next year if they do the Paul George thing that we talked about earlier, or make some sort of big acquisition with Randall and Bogdanovich. But I mean, I don't think people should discount them. And even if they win this series and move on to presumably play Boston in the conference finals, like I don't think Boston is just going to blow the doors off of the Knicks. I think it's going to be a hard fought series.
I don't even know. I'd have to dig deeper as to who I would pick for that one, but I think there would be some people who are prepared to be like, well, this is like the Knicks' Atlanta Hawks run in 2021. Like they
Yeah.
just caught the right matchups, the hobbled Sixers, a Pacers team that just is fine. And it's like, no, like this team, there's definitely something more to this. There's definitely stuff they need to add,
Yeah.
but this is not like an aberration when you're looking at what they're able to do. So I'm going to go Knicks in 6. But I really there's just so much variance to how the Pacers play. I don't feel great about it.
Yeah. I the only thing I'd be like fairly surprised by is a Pacers in 5 or Pacers in 4. Like I could there are definitely worlds in which the Knicks just like totally run out of gas and the Pacers win this series, but I think it would be a longer series. Like I think the Knicks are going in as the better team. They are a somewhat heavy favorite on the odds market. So I could see, a Knicks sweep. I could see Knicks in 5. I could see a long series either way, but Pacers winning in a short series would be a surprise to me because I do think the Knicks just have a clear advantage in terms of talent, and I just keep coming back to the physicality, man. Like the rebounding, it sounds so stupid to harp on, but the Sixers would have won that series if not for the rebounding. Like
Well,
I mean they.
oh no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't
Well,
mean to.
it was game one. Like they got out rebounded by 20, and it's like every fourth quarter, it felt like game 4 especially was they just got destroyed at the end. Like and even in game 6, I think there were a couple key ones late where the Knicks just continued to generate these possessions out of thin air that they should not be getting, and it allows them to build these leads. And honestly, I could also see just the wild swings of that Knicks Sixers series, the game 2 ending, the game 5 ending, them getting up so big in game 6 and then giving up that whole lead by halftime and going down 10 points in the third quarter, coming back from that, going up 8 late, giving that whole lead back up. Like I think that just tested them in a way that the Pacers did not get tested in the first round, and it's going to prepare them for what's coming more than the Pacers might be.
And I would say it's not stupid to harp on the offensive rebounding when they boarded. It was like basically 36% of their own misses for the series. And there were like stretches where at the end of it was game 6, they rebounded 56.2% of their own misses in the first quarter of game 6. The Sixers actually rebounded 46% of their own misses, I think, in that quarter. 56.2% for a 12-minute stretch is fucking wild.
I'm honestly just proud of the Sixers for not totally letting go of the rope, because when they were down 33-11, I was like, that game started at 9:00, so I was telling my wife like, yeah, actually maybe I will go to bed with you at halftime, like maybe. And then they had already taken back the lead by halftime, and I went upstairs.
That series was so epic. It was, I think, the most entertaining first round series for me since, you remember that, what year was that? The Clippers Spurs, where it came down to was it Chris Paul hit like the game winner? It was in game 7, like basically hit the buzzer at that. I think this was the most entertaining first round series I've seen since then. Was that 2014?
I think so.
Around there,
yeah. I should be more upset about it, and I'm surprised that Sixers. I guess Sixers fans have just already moved on to like arguing about Jimmy Butler versus Paul George versus Brandon Ingram versus 2 stars, 3 stars, whatever. So like no one's really fixated on it. If anything, I think it just kind of solidified that Tyrese Maxey is that dude, and that's
he's that dude.
And that's all that matters from the season, honestly, because that was their biggest, the non-Harden question coming in was, is Tyrese Maxey the clear number 2? Yes, question answered. Now we can move on. But yeah, like I mean, the entire series being decided by a margin of 1 point. And I loved the Nick Nurse's comment before game 6 was just so fitting, where he was just like, nothing matters.
Did you see the meme I posted about that? It was from, oh man, why am I blanking on what's that show from Netflix with Jason Bateman? It's based in Missouri. Oh, Ozark. And the meme is, I don't know fuck about shit or shit about fuck. And that's basically what Nick Nurse said. And I was like, I respect it. This is a level of nihilism that is so relatable that I love it. I was going to ask, do we have a few minutes to spend on just Thunder?
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we go. I was about to forget who the Thunder are playing. Thunder Mavs. What are your initial thoughts like heading into this series? And like we're kind of fresh off as we're recording this, the Mavs bouncing the Clippers. So I haven't dug super deep into it, but it's kind of another fascinating matchup too, where it's just like Dallas plays, I think, understatedly super huge to where it's okay. You have Doncic is massive for a point guard. And then now they've just run these lineups where it's Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, and then Gafford or Lively, or it's you have PJ Washington, Maxi Kleba, and we haven't seen them really play with another big with that, but like PJ Washington, Maxi Kleba with a Derek Jones Jr. So they could just be super big, which that's still a weakness of the Thunder. I don't think they needed to go out and get size, and they didn't at the trade deadline, but it's kind of like fascinating to where you don't view Dallas as this physical team, but the 4-on-3 situations they can create in the half court with their pick and rolls, I do think will stress test OKC's defense for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Kleba, I know, injured the shoulder last night. I think as we were recording, I saw Sham's notification about like I think it's a full dislocation if I saw that
Oh, I didn't
correctly.
see that.
I think I might have read that wrong, so I apologize in advance. Third degree dislocation. This is from Tim McMahon of ESPN. Third degree dislocation of the AC joint in Maxi Kleber's shoulder.
Oh, he's
So
done. All right, so never.
sidelined indefinitely, perhaps the remainder of the Mavs playoff run, and that's a kind of big deal for this
That's a
matchup
huge
in
deal.
particular.
Well, because now it's like everything I just said, it's just like it's negated. So they're not as huge, but like you still have the Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington big look. And that fared really well for Dallas against the Clippers. With the PJ Washington, Gafford, and Derrick Jones Jr. front court, their offense actually wasn't great, but they still outscored the Clippers by 5.1 points per 100 possessions. And now you add Lively in there instead of Gafford, and it was plus 12.2 points per 100 possessions. And again, that's without the offense kind of being elite. And I think that's maybe the sacrifice you make is that you have these three, you have a non-shooter at the 5 and then 2 shaky shooters, relatively speaking, and PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. But like their defense is real. And like, I don't know how they're going to do against the Clippers. They were never truly 5 out. And like the Thunder are just 5 out, basically 48 minutes a game. There's not, unless they're going to, uncork Bismack Biyombo for the series for some reason, that's just going to be.
Right.
So
right.
I think they will be a team, and he shot 1,000,000,000% from 3 against the Pelicans. They're going to more egregiously not defend Josh Giddey, I think, than a lot of than other teams might.
Yeah, for sure. And like I know everyone fixates on OKC's size and the rebounding in general as being their Achilles heel. They are, I mean, Chet's 7'1", Giddey's 6'8". SGA is also a jumbo point guard at 6'6". Jalen Williams is 6'5", and Lou Dort's 6'3", but he's, I mean, got a huge wingspan and is just a lockdown defensive threat. Like, I think the Thunder actually match up kind of well defensively, other than the potential of them just getting bullied. But like,
well, do you know who's like kind of their skeleton key for that? I mean, and this is not like it's Lou Dort, just because you mentioned he's 6'3", 6'4", and it's like I would rather see him defend Luka Doncic than Kyrie Irving because he's just built like a brick house. Right. And I'm not saying he's going to get the best of that matchup, but if you look at how much you're going to need to pressure and send extra bodies at Luka, I think with the Thunder, even if you want to use J-Dub in those situations, and they will, by the way, because of those two dudes, like even J-Dub versus Kyrie, like those are just, I'm not saying you're going to leave those guys alone the entire time, but you might because you can. Yeah. Like that's an option that you just have.
And yeah, you can like honestly switch interchangeably between Dort, Williams, SGA. You probably don't want Giddey on either one of those guys if you can avoid it, but like, even he can switch on to them if you were just fully switching everything. So yeah, I think the Thunder actually have the personnel to match up kind of like no one's going to stop Kyrie and Luka Doncic. They're going to get
this version of Kyrie. I saw someone tweeted if Kyrie had Kawhi's personality, which is basically just don't do or say anything, he'd be the most likable player in NBA history because of the aesthetics of his game. And I was trying to think like, who's a flashy player that had like this understated, non-controversial personality? And like the answer is just Nikola Jokic. It's just like he's super aesthetically pleased to watch him. So I digress on there. I was going to ask you though, like, do you think this sounds counterintuitive, and I don't think it's true, but because of how physical Luka is, do you think like sort of the going after Chet's guy, like screening that and like trying to get Luka onto Chet to where, okay, like Chet, yeah, we know he's mobile. We know he's a fantastic rim protector, shot blocker, whatever. But will Luka feel more confident in that matchup just because he has like just stronger shoulders and backside? Mm-hmm. Whereas that a matchup that you would see the Mavericks, I don't want to say attacking because I don't think Chet's a liability, but maybe being more willing to allow to happen or go at just because of that? Or am I overthinking that?
I could see it. I mean, I can certainly see the rationale behind it. I think Chet also just has the length and like the foot speed to recover that even if Luka blows by him, especially like Luka's he's on this blocky knee. I know he's still dominating, but like he looks he never looks fast, right? Like that's never his selling point. It's always just his size and his physicality and his control of his body, but he looks even slower than usual right now. So I do wonder if Chet might be able to like if blow, you can blow by Chet, but it doesn't matter because Chet's going to be able to recover by the time you get to the rim that he's going to block your stuff anyway. So like I fully expect Luka and Kyrie to continue. It's not like they're gonna all of a sudden score 10 points a game or like pull a
Well, do you
Tobias
think
Harris and score
will
zero.
Luka shoot better than sub 24% from 3-point range in this series?
Oh yeah, man, that was rough last night. I mean, he's not even close, and that's why I wonder how much the knee is affecting him, and it kind of because of that has me leaning OKC in this series. Like if we had fully healthy Mavericks and Maxi Kleber was not probably done for the playoffs, I think it'd be probably close to a coin flip. But if we're gonna get like 80% Luca, and we're not gonna have Kleber, so now they don't have as many 5-out options as they otherwise would have.
Mhm.
It just makes me wonder where it's coming from. Like, where's the offense coming from for Dallas if it's not Luca and Kyrie, and or just there's guys kicking out to open 3-point shooters, and if PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. are knocking down their threes, cool. Do we know about Tim Hardaway's status for this series, by the way?
No, it just I mean, I don't think they want to play him, so I don't really like. I don't even know if I view
Yeah,
it as like. I guess if they want the 3-point shooting out there, but I haven't seen anything more about his status since he's been dealing with a what was it? He's the ankle injury. So,
yeah,
this I will say PJ Washington, like, because we know Derek Jones Jr., they will have him on one of the Thunder's primaries. This becomes like a huge PJ Washington series because
mm,
just this version of the Clipper. I mean, he did a good job against like the Mavs defense was suffocating, but like this is different when you look at J Dub or Shea specifically. Like those are two completely different players. Whoever he winds up guarding more. Like I'm so interested to see how Dallas's defense holds up against OKC. But I think right now I'm leaning, especially now that you told me about this Kleber injury as we're recording. I didn't realize the shoulder injury was that serious. I'm going to go OKC in 6. And honestly, because Luka's dealing with the knee stuff, I think Dallas's defense is resilient enough to win too, even with that. It just wouldn't shock me if this was an OKC in 5 situation. I still think
yeah.
people underestimate just how dominant the Thunder are. Like
I
they're
agree.
terrifying. I think the Mavs obviously have more buttons to push than that version of the Pelicans that we
Yeah,
saw. But I think you can make the case that who are the best Shea Gilgeous-Alexander defenders in the West? It's probably Herb Jones and or Jaden McDaniels. And so like the Mavs just don't have a Herb Jones. They have Derek Jones Jr. and PJ Washington and Dante Exum. And that's just not the same.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like hard to read into the first round series from the Thunder because there was no Zion, but I mean game one was close, and then they kind of just toyed with the Pelicans for 3 games. And I don't think they're going to have that luxury against the Mavericks unless one of Luca or Kyrie miss time, and hopefully that isn't the case. But I'm with you in leaning OKC. I selfishly hope it goes 7, just because I think it's going to be a really fun series. The one thing I'm not looking forward to is all of the MVP discourse between SGA fans and Luca
Oh,
fans, and I think it's going to be probably more
honestly, it doesn't don't
one-sided.
well, does it matter? Jokic will be named the MVP. I think what
Right.
is it, Tuesday? What or am I missing? When's the date on that?
Oh,
Whatever.
I don't know.
So
Yeah.
hopefully it's soon because that would kind of put it to bed.
I hope so. But yeah, well, then do we have this guy should have been number 2 and this guy should have been number 3 and here, like, I think there's just going to be a lot of pissing over who is better, Luka Doncic or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander
I love
between
to
the
fight
two
about
fan
who's the
bases.
better loser or non-winner because no one's a
Right.
loser. Who's the better non-winner for this
who's
award?
who's the better first team all NBA player? Who cares? They're both great. Then you're not going to win MVP because Jokic is still here. So I don't want to. I'm just going to like unplug from those conversations. But as a basketball fan, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of seeing two of the best players in the NBA going head to head against one another, and it should be.
I'm
I mean,
excited that we're gonna have 3 super tantalizing second round matchups. I just can't bring myself
yeah,
to care about who the like Cavs, Magic, fuck it, like Celtics in 5. Like it's just
yeah. I want the Magic. I want the Magic to win just because I think they could be interesting. I'm not saying they're gonna like give a real scare to Boston, but with Mitchell so banged up and Jared Allen, missed the last 2 games of the rib thing. Who knows if he plays Sunday? Like,
Right.
I think the Cavs are just too injured to really put up
I
a fight
think,
against
yeah,
Boston.
Orlando's defense could maybe do some stuff to gum up Boston's offense, especially with
Yeah.
they might have more points of like, oh, we can sacrifice here to go here if Kristaps Porzingis isn't healthy. But I mean, I don't know. After watching Donovan Mitchell in that game against
Yeah.
the Magic in Game 6, just every single point for the Cavs in the fourth quarter. So it's just he's still. I don't know how he got this reputation as just someone who doesn't rise to the occasion in the playoff. He has some epic postseason performances. So
Yeah.
I don't know where people are just like, oh, like this is someone who just always disappears when it matters. I'm like, where the hell is that? I just feel like some people don't traffic in any sort of reality.
I mean, it was the bubble series with him and Jamal Murray. That was like one of the best one-on-one showdowns we've seen in recent years.
Right. He is like now, I think, second or third all time in playoff 50-point games.
Wow.
Total. Because he has 3. Wild. And I think he's in the top 5 already. And he leads all active players, by the way. So wow. in a league that has LeBron James and Kevin Durant like still playing, obviously they didn't make it deep this year. His 3 50-point games, the leader among all active players.
Well, now you just gave me something for Tyrese Maxey to look forward to in about 6 years. All right. I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. So Dan, thank you for coming on, or thank you for hosting me, because we're going to have this go live on both of our podcasts. And I wish you the best in the series against the Pacers, as much as I genuinely don't even hate the Knicks. Like that, I think that is the finest compliment I could pay coming out of a playoff series. I know Knicks fans got a little excited about their taste of playoff success, which I get. You haven't had a ton of it in recent years, so go wild. You beat a 7 seed. Congratulations. But I do think they are for real. I do think there's a lot to build on moving forward, and I think they should. I hope to see them against Boston in the conference finals, and I hope we get a competitive series there.
Thank you. And I'm so far like separated from my psychotic fandom when I was younger, just because being in the business for so long does kill at least some of it for you. I don't hate Joel Embiid. I enjoy him. I love Tyrese Maxey. I thought Philly put up a hell of a fight, but they were not, I will say, in defense of Knicks fans who should act like they've been here before now. You won a playoff series last year. It's like, let's act like you're in the second round. Congratulations. This is the burden of expectations. Because if you lose against a team that's clearly worse than you, even without Julius Randle-Bogdanovic, there's gonna be questions to answer. But like, Knicks fans, let's act like we've been here before, because now we have. I will say Philly was not your typical 7 seed.
No,
that was like
definitely not. Yeah.
The stuff that they were doing with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid at the beginning of the year. So that was a fun series. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was my pleasure on both counts. And honestly, everyone follows both on Twitter. You can find at the NBA pod, and then
download this episode twice at both of our.
Yes.
If you're listening to this on the NBA pod, go subscribe to Hardwood Knocks. If you're listening to this on Hardwood Knocks, go subscribe to the NBA pod.
Honestly, for NBA pod subscribers, Dan and Grant do a ton of great work and pump out way more stuff than we do. So please go subscribe to them if you want a ton of great NBA coverage. Dan, for your sake, I hope that you don't do the every team preview this year, because I know how much time it takes, but I know I'm
thinking about ditching it this year,
wow.
But people love it. Rest assured, if I do it, I'll need you for the Sixers. So I know you might be planning like a hiatus or something, but you're not getting it from this podcast. It's not happening.
Let's just hope Daryl Morey makes his moves early in July. That is, I am keeping my fingers crossed that like by July 15th, I can walk away for a little bit.
That'll be done, especially because now that I think teams will, even though they would have had a hole in it to begin with, now that you could talk to your own players after the finals, we're just going to see moves line up like bing, bang, boom, even faster. Than it's like, oh, free agency's done 5 minutes into it starting. How did that happen?
Well, because Lord knows teams never talked to their free agents before this year.
No, never.
Completely unallowed.
Unless,
except for
DeAndre Jordan. Got to make sure Nuggets 2022. Got to make sure that you had DeAndre Jordan.
They never got penalized. I'm still mad. It broke at 6:00. What are we doing?
Did you write the league office?
I wrote an article about it.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Well,
that's why you should subscribe to the NBA pod. You and Mort can go, like, you can make the Bulls sound compelling. Mort can make the Bulls sound compelling.
Not anymore.
I enjoyed I enjoyed the all NBA discussion where you two couldn't decide and you were just like, fuck it, throw Wemby on there then.
Honestly, I mean, he's fully pivoted into being a Spurs fan, and I think it's the correct call. If there are any other Bulls fans listening out there, please
Spurs
follow
and
my
Thunder, where
co-host.
like you need long-term viability. It's the Spurs and Thunder. Brian and I will be having a spinoff where we cover only the Thunder, since it seems like localized content's a lot more popular than what we do now,
That's
in
right.
terms of podcasting anyway. So we look forward to us launching our Thunder podcast in the near. We're coming for you, the uncontested and OKC topic Thunder, whatever they're called. And there's other. What's the one at the Athletic? We're coming for all you.
Has no one claimed Thunder Buddies yet? We need to just claim it before
We're
someone
that's
grabs
because
it.
we're the Thunder Buddies. I already have the
Yeah.
LLC set up.
Good.
We're good.
Perfect. Good. All right. Well, thank you, Dan. It's always fun chopping it up with you, and we will definitely catch up soon. Because yeah, I absolutely want to debate this 3-star, 2-star, 3 max stuff at some point. Because I think it's honestly, I think that is the biggest conversation that needs to be had across the NBA this offseason. It seems like fans are starting to catch on, but I think it's going to be that is the dividing line moving forward, and we're going to start to see it this summer.
Yes, we have to do that. Thank you for having me. This was fun. / thank you for coming on. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.